Last night, a clip from Nick Cannon's podcast went viral. In it, the celebrity host of several TV shows went on an extremely racist tirade against white people. But in his podcast, he also made many anti-Semitic comments. For some reason, this mainstream celebrity felt emboldened to go full-on racial identity supremacist. And there's a lot of reasons why this may be happening. But this is the biggest story right now. The number one trend in the United States on Twitter is the firing of Nick Cannon. Now, apparently, he hosts things for MTV and Teen Nick, and I guess he's a judge on The Voice or something. So this guy still has a ton of other jobs. He's not been canceled. This is not, in my opinion, overt cancel culture. He's been fired for saying something over the top and extremely racist and anti-Semitic, but the dude's still famous, wealthy, and he has a ton of other work. But it is, in a way, a bit of cancel culture. So here's what we need to talk about. First, I want to give you the news so you can understand why this Nick Cannon thing is so important. You probably don't know a whole lot about who Nick Cannon is. That's fine. But recently we heard from Terry Crews. Terry Crews is a famous celebrity actor. He's on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And he is the hero we need right now. Good man. Good man. You see, he tweeted, "We can't let Black Lives Matter become Black Lives Better. We need to work together with people of all races and bring equality." And for that, he's been just slammed and ripped apart by a lot of racial supremacists on Twitter. These people are being emboldened, man. And it's almost like, something's happened where you get some dude or some lady who made a joke 10 years ago that was, it was edgy. It was meant to be offensive. Back then it was fine. Today you're fired for it. They'll dig into your past. They'll give you no chance at redemption. This cancel culture is a problem. But something happened where people like Nick Cannon have impunity. They can say whatever they want. They don't get in trouble. In fact, Nick Cannon's not being fired because of the racist things he said. He's being fired specifically for anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. Now, a lot of people are angry that he went, look, man, it was full black supremacist. He was calling other people subhuman and stuff like this. The dude was like, I'm going to be careful here. And then just went off. Full-on racial supremacist. This is exactly what Terry Crews was warning us about. We can't tolerate it, but he's not getting in trouble. He's not getting canceled for that. They're seemingly allowing it. And so people like Nick Cannon and Deshaun Jackson are being emboldened to come out and say some of the most insane things. But we knew this was coming. Why? We've heard from, say, the leaders of the Women's March, from Black Lives Matter organizers, that there are a group of people who are racial supremacists, like Nick Cannon, anti-Semites, and they're emboldened to speak up now and say these things that normally would have gotten them fired, and they won't be fired. He's being fired for the anti-Semitism. Okay, so that will get you fired. But some of the racist stuff they say, man, and I'm seeing even, Chelsea Handler posted a video of Farrakhan. This stuff is these people. These racial supremacists are being emboldened. Let's read the story. And then I want to talk to you about just how bad things may be getting if this is not called out. The New York Times says, the television star Nick Cannon was fired from Viacom CBS on Tuesday for making anti-Semitic remarks during a recent podcast in which he discussed conspiracy theories about Jewish people and praised a minister notorious for anti-Jewish comments. Yeah, that's Farrakhan. You can't say Farrakhan, New York Times? That's crazy to me. Viacom is the parent company of MTV and cable channel Teen Nick, both of which prominently showcased Mr. Cannon for years. They say he has worked as an executive producer and chairman of Teen Nick, a spinoff of the network, Nickelodeon geared toward teenagers. He had also been a host and executive producer of the MTV comedy show Wild and Out. A Viacom CBS spokeswoman said in a statement, the company categorically denounces all form of anti-Semitism. We have spoken with Nick Cannon about an episode of his podcast, Cannon's Class, on YouTube, which promoted hateful speech and spread anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. While we support ongoing education and dialogue in the fight against bigotry, we are deeply troubled that Nick has failed to acknowledge or apologize for perpetuating anti-Semitism. We are terminating our relationship with him. In a tweet on Monday, Mr. Cannon said, anyone who knows me knows I have no hate in my heart nor malice intentions. He says, I do not condone hate speech nor the spread of hateful rhetoric. We're living in a time when it is more important than ever to promote unity and understanding. I don't buy it. The dude basically said that he is I guess it's called a black Hebrew Israelite. He said that he is the true the true Jewish, the true Hebrew or whatever, and therefore it's impossible for him to actually be anti-Semitic. That was apparently what he said. Look, man, you can believe what you want, fine. But when you target other groups and start calling them subhuman and all that stuff, don't be surprised when you get fired. And this goes for white supremacists. I don't care what kind of racist you are. This is not something that we tolerate as a society. But it does bring itself to a bigger question about cancel culture. And I'll make the distinction very, very clear. Personally, if you get fired because you went off on like an extreme racist tirade, I gotta tell you, man, I got very little sympathy. If a brand doesn't want to be associated with you because it negatively impacts them, I said this about a bunch of other things, like, Aunt Jemima wants to pull the image of Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben's. And I'm like, well, I think you got to listen to what people are actually saying, because apparently the family of the Aunt Jemima character model are upset, and Uncle Ben was just a farmer. I think if a brand makes a choice because they want to make money and they're trying to cater to a large audience, branding is meant to be an advertisement. I get it. Hiring a celebrity is meant to be an advertisement. Hiring personalities, is meant to be an advertisement. You're like, hey, look at this guy we got. Come with us and come watch our thing. Come buy our product. If you go off on a white supremacist tirade and they fire you, I'm going to be like, yeah, well, nobody likes that. There's two big problems, however, in cancel culture that I think get to the root of why so many people call it out. The first, the line over what is or isn't acceptable is skewed to an insane degree, an absolutely insane degree. Terry Crews is being attacked for saying no to racism. People are attacking him, okay? That's where it gets scary. Where are they going to push the Overton window, which is like what is socially acceptable? So now you have someone who might say something passively ignorant, like Megyn Kelly. When she asked a question about why blackface was offensive, fired. That's insane. Come on, man. Ignorance? You could have said, well, isn't this a learning moment for you, Megyn Kelly? Let us explain to you why it is so offensive. And she would have went, oh, I didn't know. And many other people didn't know. Why was she fired? Nick Cannon goes on a racist tirade and he still got all of this work. He's being terminated for anti-Semitism. The other issue is digging into people's past to pull up 20-year-old, writing and 10-year-old writing and saying, when you were 15, you went on World of Warcraft and made an edgy joke and someone has a screenshot. You're fired. Things like that have happened. They've gone to people's past and said, one guy, the race car driver, like, your father said the N-word before you were born. You're fired. And he lost a sponsor because of it. That's insane. There's got to be room for forgiveness. Yes, forgiveness even for people like Nick Cannon. That is the big problem here. Nick Cannon didn't say something 20 years ago. It's his latest episode where he goes off on this tirade. So listen, I don't want to see him banned from social media. I don't want to see his Twitter taken down, his YouTube taken down. I want him to be able to speak up so I know what he says, so I can be like, wow, I did not know this guy was this bad of a person. I didn't know he held these insane views. Let him speak. Let him say these things, and let everybody who holds these anti-Semitic and racist views tell people what they really think. I tweeted about this. Nick Cannon is being emboldened. I said, this is what's really funny about the tweet I put out. I said something like, they've always believed this. They're just now emboldened. If you knew what they actually thought in private, you'd probably vomit at how extreme they are. In Nick Cannon's speech, in his video, he goes, I'm going to be careful about how I say this. Yeah. Because his views are actually much more extreme than he's letting on. He's trying to crop dust the issue, get as close as he can to see where that line is, right? And immediately I get people saying, who's they, Tim? What does that mean? I'm like, oh, here come the defenders of racial supremacy. Here come the defenders of anti-Semitism, trying to imply that I was talking about anything other than these specific people, black identity extremists. They hold these views. They just don't let you know. And the same is true for white supremacists. They know what is or isn't socially acceptable. The difference, you get anywhere near something that's perceivably bigoted, even something you did 10 years ago, and you're fired, canceled, and gone. And that's going too far. People like Nick Cannon, this tweet that's going viral, it's got 27,000 retweets, I believe millions of views. And he's only being fired for the anti-Semitic comments, not the overt racial supremacist comments. That's the problem with cancel culture. We got to have a standard. I'll call it the Terry Crews standard. Let me pull up his tweet. He said, when I was young, I was never afraid of the Klan. It was people like you, the threats, the intimidation, discouraging free thought, and the insult of acting white. My heart breaks because your behavior only reveals you don't know how powerful you are. Somebody responded to him. So here's the tweet from Adam Ford. Nick Cannon. I'm not going to repeat what Nick Cannon said. Terry Crews says we have to include this white voice, this Hispanic voice, this Asian voice. We have to include it right now because if we don't, it's going to slip into something we are really not prepared for. Terry Crews on the talk, referencing Nick Cannon's racist tirade. And someone said, you're going so hard against Nick Cannon, but when you fall, no black person will have your back. Watch. Maybe I don't believe that's true. I believe there are a lot of principled people of all races that will be there for Terry Crews and who will defend him because Terry Crews is the hero we need right now. Terry Crews is the person who's actually preaching unity, trying to bring us together in this trying time where we have riots, people are losing their lives. We are asking the question about Black Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter. People are debating. And Terry Crews stepped up and says, listen, everybody, we have to do this together. And a lot of people attacked him for it because Terry Crews' message is calling out the extremists. And it's extremely important that he does. Otherwise, we end up with people like Nick Cannon being emboldened. I don't think, look, Nick Cannon probably won't be fired. But here's the bigger question. Should Nick Cannon be fired from all of his jobs? I don't know about should, but I kind of lean towards yes. And I'll make the distinction. When the left right now is saying cancel culture isn't real, they're trying to gaslight you because cancel culture isn't necessarily a reference to you, vomiting up horrifying racist speech and then getting fired for it. That's what they want you to believe. They'll say things like cancel culture isn't real. What we're talking about is people being held accountable for being racist or something. Let me stop you right there. When you dig up a 10-year-old comedy sketch from Sarah Silverman so she can't get work, that's cancel culture. Maybe Sarah Silverman should have spoke up against this a long time ago. When you have somebody whose dad said a racial slur before he was born, losing a sponsor, that is cancel culture. Come on, that's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. When people get fired for asking a question that they don't know why blackface is offensive, that's cancel culture. That's insane. You're looking for reasons to harm people and you're not giving them a chance at forgiveness. So I would even go this far. Nick Cannon, they shouldn't have fired him yet. They should fire him if he refuses to apologize straight up right now. And that's what they're saying. Viacom said that he refused to apologize for the anti-Semitic comments. That's why he's gone. Well, there you go. Apparently they gave him a chance to say, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. It's not. But what about the rest of what he said? I absolutely will give him a chance to come around and say, you know what? I was wrong, whatever, all that stuff. So I don't know what else, They talk about Mr. Griffin. Oh, okay. Yeah. So this is the guy in the show. On the June 30 episode of the podcast, Mr. Cannon was interviewing rapper Richard Griffin, known as Professor Griff, about his dismissal from the hip-hop group Public Enemy in 1989. Griffin left the group after he said in an interview with the Washington Times, things I'm not going to repeat. I can't even repeat this stuff, man. I could probably get in trouble just because it's in the New York Times article. But he said a bunch of anti-Semitic stuff. He totally did. And he says, I'm hated because I told the truth. That's it. That's it. And Cannon said, you're speaking facts. There's no reason to be scared of anything when you're speaking the truth. Man. Mr. Cannon said it was an honor to have the legend Mr. Griffin on his podcast. He also said it was a shame that Louis Farrakhan, a minister known for his anti-Semitic comments, had been silenced on Facebook. I actually, I got to say this. I don't believe Farrakhan should have been banned. I don't. Let Farrakhan speak. And let all of the people who like his posts and comment on his posts, let them tell the world what they really think. I want to know. I don't want these people hiding, lurking about, holding these views, because look, it's important we know what is bad. We challenge what is acceptable, and we draw those lines. In a society that has people from all different backgrounds, races, creeds, national origins, where we're truly trying to live together, and we want this vision. We want to hold hands and sing under a rainbow, don't we? But in this world where there are people who would secretly seek to subvert our chances at success, I'd rather just let them speak so I know who they are. And then, you don't hire them. Let them be emboldened to speak. Let them go on Facebook and Twitter and social media and say what they want to say. I want to know who they are. I'm glad Nick Cannon came out and said it because now I know. I think he's gross. I think he's disgusting. And I will not partake in any of his content and the things he says. See, what if You got invited onto his show and you had no idea. What if he went around saying, come and support my cause, and you had no idea? Nah, it's good that you now know. I'll bring you now to something that I find very alarming. CDC employees call out agency's toxic culture of racial aggression. There's a story I covered yesterday where about 10%, a little bit more than 10%, almost 12% of the CDC staff are demanding the CDC publicly declare racism a public health crisis in the U.S. Okay, that makes no sense. My concern is how many people like Nick Cannon are lurking in the background. This is the tweet that I put out. They've always believed this stuff. Okay, these black Hebrew Israelites, these racial supremacists, they believe it. They just don't say it until they're emboldened. Now I think what we're going to get out of the Nick Cannon situation, more people being emboldened. And I'll tell you what, I do think it's a good thing to a certain degree. Good that we can see them. They'll talk about who they are. And then look, I have a lot of friends. They don't seem to understand this, that they're high profile celebrities that are advancing certain causes for insane racial supremacist reasons. And I want to show them. So as soon as Nick Cannon said that, I said, thank you for telling us what you really think. I mean it. And now I'm going to send this video to my friends and say, this is what this guy thinks. Don't listen to him. I defer to Dave Chappelle. I defer to Terry Crews when they talk about justice, when they talk about equality. Dave Chappelle did that comedy special I've referenced many times. He's not talking about racial supremacy. He's not talking about conspiracy theories. He's not talking about taxing Amazon, far left. He's talking about people losing their lives due to police overreach, brutality, and a lack of accountability. And you know what? Those are all bad things, and he's right to bring them up. He talks about the potential for violence from people who feel like they have no recourse and how that's a danger we will face from people who have feel like they have no chance. Yeah, it's a good point. Dave Chappelle may have his views on what he thinks is the most pressing problem. Something is negatively impacting him and his community, and I can respect that. It doesn't mean he's completely right, but he is highlighting serious problems. That's the kind of talk we need. These are the problems we want to focus on. Dave Chappelle and Terry Crews are hitting the nail on the head with a hammer, pointing out racial inequality, disparities in policing, and Terry Crews saying we need to come together as one, as human beings. Bravo, good sir. Bravo. And that brings us to these other people like Nick Cannon and the problem they represent. So check this out. This is a tweet from Jason Whitlock. Jason Whitlock is Outkick.com. I believe he's a sports commentator. I could be wrong. He says, this tweet took a lot of heat. I thought of it today when reading about Nick Cannon. Teaching racism is at an all-time high. Don't be a professor of bigotry. Terry Crews said, if you are a child of God, you are my brother and my sister. I have family of every race, creed, and ideology. We must ensure Black Lives Matter doesn't morph into Black Lives Better. There are a lot of people that I look up to. And in these times, you have people who would absolutely exploit Black Lives Matter, what it was supposed to represent, and the racial tensions for their insane racist and anti-Semitic goals. But then we have people who are willing to stand up and say no to this stuff. And those are the kind of people that we need to be propping up. So when it comes to cancel culture, man, this really did bring up an interesting conundrum for me. In how far is too far? Where's the line? And I think it's fair to say there is a point at which you should probably be fired for the things you say, 100%. If you go out and call for overtly illegal things, if you would damage a business, then maybe you should be fired. The challenge is the line has been moved to a ridiculous point. And now we have people being fired for things that they shouldn't be fired for, and people who should be fired not being fired. So maybe, ultimately, when it comes to employment, these are tough questions. But if your boss doesn't want you there because you're hurting business, well, then, what can you say? You can be upset about it, but maybe that's it. I think the big issue would be like to reference someone like, say, Jack Murphy. He wrote a book called Democrat to Deplorable. He got canceled. He was falsely accused of things. He didn't come out and say things. And these are the things that we need to point out into what cancel culture really is. So maybe it's fair to say cancel culture is not if, some dude, white or otherwise, comes out and spews violent anti-Semitic statements getting fired. That's not cancel culture if someone says, I don't want that in my company. Cancel culture is, you're somebody like Jack Murphy who's like teaching Little League baseball or something. Someone falsely accuses of things that aren't true, writes fake news about you, and you get fired before you've even said a word. That's cancel culture. When you didn't even say anything and they accuse you and they get you fired. Maybe it's not cancel culture then if you choose to come out and offend, target people, insult them, say these things that are bad for business. These are look, as I was reading this Nick Cannon story and seeing this throughout the other day, I really thought about, where's the line in firing somebody? And it's difficult. It's difficult. I guess it depends on the job. It depends on the heat you're willing to take. But what if someone said something that was offensive to a lot of people and someone else stood by them? Honestly, these are tough questions. I don't think I have all the answers to. What I can say is that there is a line. We need to make sure we draw it for the left and the right. If Nick Cannon is not being fired for the racist things he said, we can see that they are being given leeway in their extreme racism. And that will make people more emboldened. But you know what? Good. I want to hear it. I want to know who the bad people are. And I want to know who the good people are, so I can cheer and believe in people like Terry Crews and call out and slam people like Nick Cannon. We'll see how this plays out. He's getting fired from one job, but I got more segments coming up later today. The next will be at 1 p.m. on this channel, and I will see you all then.